This is Robbie Marino, CZW with Zandig. Oh my God, what the fuck just happened?
What do you mean what happened? What are you, blind? Jesus! There was 5 of them! It took 5 of them! Justice Payne! Hate Club! The Hate Club's dead! Nick Gage! Nate Hatred! Who do you think you are? Nobody does this to Zandig! Nobody does this to the wife beater! Zandig, wife beater, Nick Mondo! We are the most ultra-violent force on the face of the earth! Oh my! Oh! Yo, you're gonna die! You are gonna die! I guarantee it! I am gonna kill you! You people have not seen anything! This is just the start of Fake You TV! I am the ultraviolet icon! This is Robbie Marino! This is CZW, the most violent federation on the face of the earth! You just wait and see how far we're gonna go! I'm out of here!
We still have 3 games of the men's D1 tournament, 3 games in the women's D1 tournament, championship games in the men's D2 and D3 tournaments, Final 4, I think, in the D3 women's tournament. 3 games in the men's D3 tournament. I think 3 in the women's D3 tournament and 2 apiece in the D2 tournaments. After all that, so you still got something to look forward to, is what we're getting at.
Robbie Moreno's face was me during that entire fourth quarter of the Penn State Notre Dame game. Honestly, that might have been my face like this entire weekend. But the Penn State people are in the chat, and frankly, they should be. Gil was there. Shout out Gil. I mean, I would say I hope you had a great time, but like Jesus, I mean, obviously. Julian Press, shout out. We are, Art Pokemon. I did what I did during the Cornell game and stopped watching. Maybe just don't turn the game on. That was.
Oh yeah. So welcome to the Cross Commission Sunday recap. We'll try to make this a little bit tighter because it's Sunday night and I got to get up early tomorrow morning and I got to watch the Leafs blow a Game 7. I'm Ryan. That's Jake. That's safe. Jake was on the scene in Annapolis. He'll share his sights and sounds from a record-breaking quarterfinal there at Navy Marine Corps. It was going to be impossible to live up to yesterday's, but today wasn't shabby at all by any means with that wild comeback out of Penn State, and Georgetown, Maryland was close throughout. So shall we dig right into it, especially for our Penn State faithful, or do we want to just share some scenes in Annapolis first and then dig into the games?
Yeah, I'll do that, especially since a lot of... what's up, Safe?
Were you in the press box? Was it official?
No.
I just saw the views. I thought maybe...
I got in the upper deck. They had the upper deck open. Upper deck was great view.
Yeah, for sure. No, I thought maybe got it.
Who was it?
Lacrosse definitely looks like a sport that'll look better in a 200 section of a stadium.
Yes, it does. You see everything.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Mike, I didn't do the press box. I wanted to be among the people. I was like that. Mike Althouse on Twitter, who I think was doing the clock today for Navy. He was asking me if I was going to be there, and I was like, no, or press box or crowd. And I was, I'll be in the crowd. And he called me a plebe. Shout out Mike if he's listening. But listen, I did as soon as I walked in, I met a listener. Didn't really get to introduce, but I was just standing in line. He was walking by. He said something at first, and I couldn't quite hear him. Then he said, "Fan of the podcast." I'm like, "Oh man, thanks."
I thought it was gonna be like you're at the box office, just like an insider line.
So if you're out, if whoever was there, if you were the one I said hi to, Matt, thank you so much. That's awesome. I wish I could have got your name, but thank you for listening. Thanks for everybody who's here. No re-entry, definitely. I didn't.
No re-entry?
Yeah, no re-entry.
Man, Hofstra had it, and it's great.
Yeah, because the tailgating was just, Gil could speak to this. The tailgating was crazy. I walked right by all the tailgates. kind of like there was like a grassy area where a lot of the tailgates were set up. I walked by those when I came in. Shout out to Notre Dame fans. They were still tailgating after the game. So enjoying the day. It was a beautiful day. A lot of my sights and scenes probably will be from Penn State and Notre Dame. Georgetown, there's definitely some from Georgetown, Maryland too. But just what a crazy day. Gil said the crowd was unbelievable. They announced 2 numbers, which is interesting. They announced 16,000. I'm like, man, well, hell of a crowd, second best. And then they announced the second number. It was like a precinct still reporting situation. and then that was the record. So I don't know why they had 2 numbers.
We found a box of ballots just in the corners.
The tickets are still here. So whatever the number, whatever it was unbelievable. Julian says there was re-entry in 2023 at Navy. Wonder what happened. I don't know. Yeah, it was like that they said it like last week. I know when I bought my tickets. They said there wasn't going to be re-entry. So I'm not sure. Wish it would have been. Listen, Navy's just an incredible site. This is your obligatory. They should hold the Final Four at Navy comment, and because there's a bunch of parking and space like where you can kind of tailgate out there. Then there's another area. There's like 3 different areas you can tailgate if you wanted to. They got a bunch of parking. Annapolis, obviously a great city. The crowd was incredible. I was on the press box side. I thought the press box side was the other way, but I was on the press box side. The other end, the TV side view you could see was packed. And then it was even more on the press box side. Again, upper deck was open. We had, especially for the Maryland game, there were a bunch of Terp fans in the upper deck. To kind of get into the crowd, it felt like more Notre Dame fans, slightly, a bit. But the Penn State fans were more vocal. The Penn State fans were really into it. And especially when the game got to credit the Penn State fans, like they never stopped cheering. They were always in the game. Every time Penn State kind of threatened to make a run, the Penn State fans were into it. And when it got to 12-9, 12-10, it was like, oh man, something is happening here. And they were living and dying, especially down the stretch. The end of that game, from being in this and seeing the reaction of the Penn State players, the Penn State coaches, it was incredible. When Penn State, I tweeted it out, when Penn State got the they were on their feet really when they started making saves and getting stops. One guy, which you can see the guy in front of me, if you're on some of my videos, when I think Ethan Long, scored the behind the back goal to put them up 2. This guy in front of me it might have been that or the trainer goal to tie or take the lead. This dude like takes his shirt off in front of me. I mean, he's waving it around. This guy was living and dying. God, if I didn't want to capture him too much in the frame because I didn't want to out him or anything. But if he's listening, man, that was crazy. The scene where Penn State, when they were up 2 and then they got the ball and they made like that last stop, was unbelievable. The fans were going nuts. I've never seen in my life Jeff Tambroni, the way he sprinted down the sideline. And at first he didn't want to call a timeout, but he's sprinting down the sidelines and he's like leaping in the air. And it's Tam, so he's like the personification of cool. But he was like sprinting down the sideline. He's like leaping in the air. The entire Penn State team ran out on the field after they took the timeout. The whole team, like they won the game. It was unlike anything I can describe. It was crazy. I mean, we've seen so much in this tournament already. I've been to some pretty great games in my time as a fan. I've been to the quarterfinals the last 2 years in a row, and they've delivered both times. But that was unbelievable. I think Anish said it on the broadcast. Look, recency bias is a hell of a drug, but I think that was the best comeback I've ever seen. It's hard to describe, and I'm sure it felt similar at home, the degree to which that game felt over at multiple points in time. I mean, Penn State could do nothing in the second quarter. Nothing offensively. Just were stuck. And then they make a run to get it to what, 3, I think, out of that, or yeah, because it was 5. They led by 5, and then they got it down to 3. And it felt like there were chances because Notre Dame was throwing the ball away, which wound up being kind of a canary in the coal mine, how Notre Dame came out in the second half. Notre Dame was kind of throwing the ball away. Penn State had some chances, and then Penn State fumbled a clear, and Chris Kavanaugh scored right back to make it 4. And it's like, all right, we're done here. And then they got to 6. And it's like, okay, we're definitely done here. Like, Penn State had their chance, and they couldn't get over the hump. And it's like, all right, this is over. And then it all changed. Yeah, it says that it was 9-6, and then it became 12-6 in a blink of an eye. This game felt over at multiple points in time, and then it wasn't. That's considering the way how far Penn State was behind. Man, that was something else. Again, recency bias, but dude, I think that might be the craziest. I don't know what else kind of quantifies in that run. I mean, like Syracuse was down 8-2 against Harvard. That felt attainable the entire game. I thought Syracuse could win that game at like any point in time. I thought Penn State was done. Done. And then they just clawed their way back from the abyss, and they made Notre Dame tap out in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. I'll turn it over to you guys, but yeah, that was unbelievable.
Well, I think, and see if you could agree with this, thing that I've been beating the drum a lot the past couple of weeks is what happens if Notre Dame has the trademark goalless double-digit minute goal drought. And it happened in the first quarter, and it was shades of Ohio State, where, okay, they didn't score, but the other team didn't get too much of a head start. They kept it within 2 goals. They only allowed 2 goals, I think, in that process, and then it was 3-2 Notre Dame in a blink of an eye there at the end of the first. And then, they were humming in the second quarter. Third quarter, they were slowing up a little bit, but still get, that stretch where, Penn State was making a run. They made a run back, and it was 12-6. And I don't know if it's partially that they ran out of gas. It's partially the bad habits that we've seen 4 or 5 times this season where they're going 10-plus minutes without getting anything on cage. And I have to say, a lot of that, Kevin Corrigan botched up the coaching situation with this.
Yeah.
The only timeout he used during that run was in the middle of what was already a TV timeout.
It was a challenge.
To do a failed challenge. You should have taken that timeout before, and you had a free timeout there, and then you burn your timeout when you already had a free timeout.
Well, he burned the timeout for the challenge, and it was a bad challenge.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. And you had extra time to take a look at your iPad before you threw the flag. You could have waited till they came back from commercial to throw the flag if you were really that sure about it.
I think you need to do it within a certain amount of time, but
it was not like the NHL where you could take your sweet time.
I don't think so. It wasn't a good challenge. No, Ryan's right. Notre Dame needed a timeout at several points late in that. Gil mentioned the zone threw Notre Dame off. Man, no one does in-game adjustments like Tills and Bucci and Haas. I mean, they always have a curveball. They always have a curveball. And to be fair, I think they should have gone to it earlier. Because they when they figured it out, it was like, oh, they just clamped Taylor in the fourth quarter. Every time Jake Taylor touched the ball, he had 3 guys just swarm him. And it's like, that's, to Ryan's point, that's how you stop Notre Dame, is you take away Taylor. When you take him away, they just kind of have trouble going to other spots on the field and creating offense. And I mean, often it's because they've struggled to win matchups. They won matchups today, early, but then Notre Dame, they threw that zone in. And you could tell every time Notre Dame got the ball down 1 or 2, it's like, okay, Corrigan wants to save one timeout for the last possession. That's what they do. We talk about so much. Notre Dame is so good out of timeouts in late in games. That's their. Think back to the Final Four against Virginia. Timeout, score, overtime, timeout, score. I mean, they just drew it up every time. So you knew Corrigan wanted to use one, but because he didn't have two, the offense was in a funk, and they needed a timeout at some point there to drop a good play, get it to one, but they couldn't. The Corrigan was clearly waiting to that last possession. Eventually, just couldn't. He had to burn it. So I'll let Safe go. By the way, 15 people are in here, so that's awesome. Smash the like button, hit subscribe, all that. I'll let Safe go now.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, I was getting vibe of Penn State Duke 2023. Just because I was thinking, I was like, oh man, this is going to be another heartbreaking end. Because I felt like just with the Penn State offense, you've been up and down, but we've seen them like make like big runs and quite efficient. Like even like the TJ Malone years, like obviously with Grant, but it was like TJ Malone years, like they're so efficient. It would be like 9 shots, they had 7 goals, and it was just like really like just kind of a watch out. I didn't know if they could do this, but I was like, I think they had something in there, maybe last charge. And yeah, it was like the crowd really. I mean, it felt like it was still probably majority Notre Dame fans. Just they travel so well, but it felt like the crowd like got Penn State really back into. I mean, reminded me like 2023 in Philly, like the fans, like the atmosphere, like Duke, you could really feel that it was just like reeling, like when Penn State was coming back, and you've seen this here. It's like, and it's more stark, I thought, in this situation, just because like Notre Dame scored up. I was going to say the last goal was like 5:56 with 3 in the third period. That's
20. That's 21 minutes.
Yeah,
yeah. They went 20 minutes without a goal.
It seemed like like Ryan, to your point, like second half, or I guess we're talking about second half adjustments. Like, yeah, he's like Russell Crowe in The Beautiful Mind. Tams, like he just cooking back there, just like But I just felt like they just looked like a different team trainer. The way he was like attacking, we were just like in the DMs. We're like, they got to do something with this guy. It doesn't seem like they could do it. Like the one where he just like kind of just barreled through the middle of the Notre Dame defense. Like they didn't show a shot at Corrigan, but I'm sure it was like just losing it there. But yeah, it's just like Notre Dame just kept reeling. Felt like those great boxing movies where just the champs just like on the ropes and stuff like that. And it was like it just felt like, oh, they'll do something. Oh, Rigadelli will have a stop there. Oh, they'll get a face off here to save some time, or do what they did when Penn State cut it to 3. Like they went on a quick 3-goal spurt in like a minute and a half, and it's that's why Notre Dame's Notre Dame. But just kind of what we talked about this year, just didn't have that other gear, but just because of time and having a different roster than the back-to-back years. But yeah, it's just like Penn State just wouldn't quit, and it's just like I thought maybe Notre Dame was just like, all right, you guys done? And then, like Penn State was like, no, we're not done. And it just kept going. Like just Notre Dame just couldn't answer, and it felt like a little bit. I mean, they were talking about it at the broadcast. I'm sure you saw it, Jake, and probably Notre Dame fans were screaming. Like it just seemed like not that much urgency. Like even when they were like down really late, like it didn't seem like they were.
I think they were. Finish up your point.
No, it's just surprised. Like I don't think that they quit, but I think they kind of thought like Penn State would eventually like they didn't give up, but just be like it's just not. They didn't expect this like response. I don't think from Penn State. It was just overwhelming.
Obviously, I think it's a couple things. I'm thinking of 2 games now that kind of come to mind here. One is the Maryland-Virginia quarterfinal from 2019, and this goes to Mark's point. Maryland was in the fourth quarter of that game. Whatever. Listen, I'll complain about to myself mostly, but the goal call till the crows come home, the cows come home. But Maryland was on empty in that fourth quarter. Virginia hunted them down. Maryland led by 5 in that fourth quarter at one point, and then Virginia just stormed back. And second one is, and to Mark's point, a lot of tanks running empty. That Notre Dame Maryland quarterfinal in 2021, where Quint had like the all-time great call, where Notre Dame scores to go up 3, and Quint's like, Notre Dame is out of gas. You're like, what? They just scored to go up 3. And it's like, oh, in like a minute, the game changed.
Also
Notre
reminds
Dame,
me of
go ahead, Ron.
Penn State Princeton 2023 first round.
Yeah, that one was a
But a lot earlier.
Yeah, Princeton, like you could tell that game was switching like the third quarter, and it just kind of slowly moved away. Notre Dame all year long, like they've been. I mean, this was just everything. The chickens come home to roost. Every issue Notre Dame's kind of had. The offense, they've been pretty shallow at the defensive midfield. Donovan and Ramsey log a ton of minutes. Ramsey went both ways, and when it got to 12-12, 13-12, I think one, Notre Dame was out of gas. I think they were empty. And then 2, I think to go a little bit before this with Ryan's point, without a timeout. Listen, I'll spot kill something. The way Notre Dame plays defense, 1, it works for them. That's Notre Dame's defense is up. I mean, in the last 15 years, it's them in Maryland as far as defense goes. And the way they play defense works. And I think there's a lot of merit to it, the way that it keeps everybody engaged in the game, because at any point you could be guarding the team's best player. At any point, it's going to be the spotlight's going to be on you. And I think that does give a lot of value to everybody feeling like ownership of that in that defense. It's not just our best long pole, whatever it might be. But there is one way in which it gives you a vulnerability, and that's if your best player is covering whomever, if you do not have, and in this case where it's like, I think it could have worked, but they just didn't make the adjustment. If you're not having your best pole on the other team's best player and you don't adjust to that, it can go bad on you quick. And I tweeted, I think at 12-12 or whatever. Honestly, I think you could have done it at the end of the third quarter. Sean Light needed to be on Matt Trainer. I mean, it's just, there's no other way to put it. I noticed in the first quarter, at the start of this game, Trainer was hungry. He took the fact that Light wasn't on him personally, because he felt I could get whatever I want. And I think Penn State went away from it because you don't want to you want to run your team offense. You don't want to force the issue. But Penn State could have got Trainer at any time of the game. Notre Dame could not cover him. And if you're going to leave Sean Light had a great game, but he's over there covering Kyle Lehman, just running in place. And Trainer was just going after every single pole. Schwitzenberg and Galbraith went after it. When he got the switch on a short, he went after it. That was one of the best individual performances in the history of the championship. He was Superman. He dragged them back by himself, and then other guys came along the way. And Lehman was scoring off switches. Yeah, like the switches just. When Notre Dame's this is when Notre Dame's defense doesn't work. When you get the switch, and when the shorties look, it's great early in the game when the shorties are fresh. When the shorties are tired, and now they're getting matched up on Penn State's best players, it was a house of cards that just all kind of unraveled. And there needed to a timeout in there somewhere. You had to switch the matchup. Again, I don't have anything against the way Notre Dame plays defense throughout most of the season in general. It works for them. But at some point, it's like Trainer scored 6 goals, and like all of them were unassisted.
And the most glaring one was the one where he ran just right down the middle past 4 defenders.
What's a part in the Red Sea? Like it was just
part in the Red Sea is what he called it. Yeah, that's exactly what he looked at. Just completely unmolested down the middle, down the pike. And I think too. I think this is what made Notre Dame back-to-back national champs was their depth, and it got chipped away this year. Just because of guys graduating and stuff. That's part of the reason why the ACC had a lot of Jekyll and Hyde teams, and Notre Dame was the most Jekyll and Hyde, because even during this in the first half, Jake, you were on the DMs. Notre Dame looked like the best team in the country. They look like that. Hey, you know what? Dude. They're unseeded, but they play like this, they're going to three-peat. Cornell's not going to have anything for them. They'll get Syracuse on a third time. They can beat Maryland's not going to be able to catch up with them on offense. If they play like this, they're three-peating. I was even saying, this kind of reminds me of a lot of these UConn men's basketball teams, where they're like a 6 or an 8 seed in the regular season, and then they turn it on in March and go on and win the national championship. That's what it felt like in the first half. But that's the thing with this Notre Dame team is when they're great, they're great. When they're not, it's maddening. And that second half was the epitome of it. Because even the beginning of the third quarter, even, again, after that initial Penn State run, they answered it back a bit. And you're like, okay, they've got it back in place. And then there came the goals drought again.
Go ahead, Safe, and then I'll kind of wrap up.
I was going to say, someone we should give a little credit to that we've been focusing on, like needed a big game. We still probably could have played better. But I think played huge in the beginning. Is Jack Frack, as Tams calls him, Frassian. Like I thought, it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I really do think that first period, coming up big with those 6 saves and even the couple, it didn't have too many more saves the rest of the way, but even the couple that he had in the third to keep Notre Dame from making a 5-goal third quarter instead of just a 3-goal third quarter. I just thought it was well done for for him, especially having such a kind of bad or subpar for his standards into the season to come out big in the first quarter. And I think that really helped to stem that tide from Notre Dame. I'm just amazed at this game. The long goal, the Ethan Long goal that was assist off of Trainer, I think it was the behind the back.
No, it was.
Yeah. I was I think I don't know if it was right then or maybe the next goal, but I that's when I tweeted. I was like, oh, this isn't officially a situation, or yeah, I think maybe it was the ninth goal, but yeah, but maybe not exactly, but yeah. You were just saying, Jake, I bet that the atmosphere just probably just shifted, just the whole tone of the stands. I mean, I'm not exactly sure, where Maryland Georgetown fans would have had the rooting interest, but I could imagine, Maryland fans probably not going to be rooting for Notre Dame, even though Penn State's a rival, and Georgetown, those old Big East rivalries, maybe they still last. It
was mostly just the Penn State fans. The Maryland fans were pretty much still tailgating at that point.
Yeah, it reminded me of yesterday, the Cornell-Richmond game. All the Princeton and Syracuse fans were too busy tailgating to root against Cornell because I felt like Richmond was going to get a big boost from the Syracuse and Princeton fans. The issue is the Syracuse and Princeton fans never came out of the tailgates.
They were in the parking lot.
You had the wall of the Cornell fans, and you had the Richmond student section was nuts. But the problem is the Princeton and Syracuse fans that would have given them a big boost in the second half never came out of the parking lot for the second half.
This one's going to eat at Notre Dame for a long time. I know they've won 2 straight titles, and so it's not a failure to lose it. Listen, Notre Dame won. We talked about it, me and Safe on the show. Notre Dame won, 9 straight NCAA tournament games in a row? I think 11 is the record. Or 10. 10 might be the record with Princeton. 10 or 11 with Princeton.
Yeah, because that was back in the 12-team format.
Yeah. 10 wins in this tournament in a row. We've seen it this weekend. To win 9 games in a row in this tournament is incredible. To win 10 would have been. So there's no.
That's tied with Virginia in the 16-team era.
Yes,
right.
Virginia won 9. But look, and listen, not to take away from Virginia, but they had the year in there, kind of breaking it up. Notre Dame, the true back-to-back, and then this. But this one's going to eat at you. You're never going to have a shot at 3 in a row again. Think of how, look, they nearly lost they had to make that comeback against Virginia in the Final Four in 2023. They nearly from this never happening. 3 in a row is just, you're never, and that's the thing is, when this game was at 12-6, Ryan hit on it. I thought Notre Dame was going to win the national championship. And that's in some ways the story of their season, is that there have been many points this year where like Notre Dame's the best team in the country, and then you kind of get vibe checked. But it looked like they were going to win it all. It looked like they had this, and it kind of wilted away from them. And it wilted away in a fashion that I think feels manageable. Like they could have still won this game. And so, yeah, it's just everything. Yeah, the depth was so crucial for Notre Dame. They didn't have that. The way last year on offense for them last year, you had to guard everybody. There was no place in the field with Notre Dame last year you felt comfortable defensively. This year it was so much on Chris Cav and Jake Taylor, and when those guys kind of got taken away, you saw it. So it's a tough. I don't think it diminishes the run in any way, but it's kind of. I kind of put it to like Kentucky when Kentucky had that undefeated year in the basketball, and they lost the game to Wisconsin. You knew in that, and that was. I'm not saying this is going to happen for Notre Dame, but that was the peak for Cal at Kentucky. It all went kind of down. They never got back to that point, and you could tell. I always remember that press conference with him and the players where it's like they wanted that. That was history, and for Notre Dame, this was history within your grasp. And again, look, it doesn't mean they were going to win the title. If they still had to win 2 more games after this. At some point, it's as Safe loves to say, fatigue makes cowards of us all. At some point, just the miles will rack up with you. And I think it did, but that's going to eat at them. Mark Hunt says this one. The programs with at least 3 Final Fours since 2019. It's Virginia, Maryland, I think Penn State.
Virginia.
I think Penn State. That's it. Or Duke in there too, I think. Duke,
I think, is in there too. And Notre Dame was just a 2, right? Yeah.
But me and Safe hit on this during the show Wednesday. I think you could call this the biggest win in the history of Penn State lacrosse. I know that seems kind of crazy, but the first Final Four was a rock show. It was Ament and O'Keefe, and that team had it takes a lot for us to remember a specific team, like a group of guys. But even more if you don't win the championship, that Penn State team might be the most memorable non-champion ever. That team had such a distinctive just vibe to them. The second one in 2023 was like a miracle. I mean, not a miracle, but it was a Cinderella surgery. They won 3 games the year before. They were unranked. They came from off they were way out there. No one saw Penn State coming. And Safe mentioned it was also, you were going both times. The first 2 were going to Philly. There was that kind of driving you. This one, Penn State just made the Final Four because it's, Mark says
it gutted out 2 awesome performances.
Yes, but also Penn State just made the Final Four because that's where Penn State is as a program.
Yeah.
This was a program win. Like Penn State can now just say
perpetually be a contender.
It takes a lot to get to this point. Mark's talking about it's Maryland, and you could argue it's just Maryland. I mean, the way that there's Maryland and there's that group of like Duke and Notre Dame and Virginia and those guys. And different programs have been at this point. Denver was there in the 2010s. But yeah, like this is a different. I think this one really puts them in that kind of where you really have to account for them every year as a potential Final Four team. Because
and I think the way they did it too, the 2 gutsy wins, because those could have easily been 2 games that could have been losses. But again, like I used with that word yesterday with Syracuse, resiliency, not getting down on themselves and fighting back. They did it in an upset bid against Colgate, and then they did it against the 2-time defending national champs.
And beating Notre Dame, if you look at Penn State's run in 2019, they were the 1 seed. 2025, they beat 2 unseeded teams. Granted, Army was, and this is an unseeded Notre Dame, but this is different. I mean, Army was a great team in 23, but yeah, you beat Notre Dame 2 in a row. There's this whole thing of like Penn State in the ACC. That came up. Why doesn't Penn State play ACC teams? You beat an ACC team to go to the Final Four. This one's This one's a little different, I think. This gets Penn State into you have to talk. Yeah, we have to talk. Look, and they have to win a title. That's the only thing left for this program now is can we win a national championship? Can Tams finally get off the list? And look, they'll have as good a shot as anybody next weekend. But yeah, I think this is a bigger win for Penn. I mean, 2019, the first one, yes, always the first time you make it's big. But again, it kind of felt preordained they were going to make the Final Four. Getting this one was unbelievable. And as Ryan mentioned, yeah, the fashion, it'll go down in the history of this comeback. So yeah, I really think this is a different kind of win for the Penn State program. Now, Penn State is finally at the point, at different points, to be like, is Penn State where we thought they'd get when Tams took the job? A perennial kind of tournament team. And 2019, we thought yes, and then it didn't happen. In 2023, we thought okay, and now it's like yes. They finally kind of realized where a lot of people thought they'd be when Tams took the job.
They never had a win like this in the tournament. That 2019 team, we rightfully talked about them, even though they didn't win a title. I mean, the first two games of the tournament, they won 46-24. You know, over UMBC and Loyola. Yeah, and even with Yale having, just a great day at the face-off, they still made it like probably uncomfortably close for Yale, 21-17. The 2023 run, the comeback against Army, the Princeton, sorry, just surviving against Army, and then, losing to Duke. This game, like, they took it from Notre Dame. They always say there's something different, with your such an overwhelming offense in 2019, and I wouldn't say lucky, but you kind of like getting through getting your teeth the Penn State and Army games in 2023. Like this one again, like Notre Dame had it. I wouldn't say Notre Dame was like celebrating with like 5:56 left, but like they're probably thinking like, yeah, we got this. And they just actually like just took it from Notre Dame, and Notre Dame being the two-time national defending champion just makes the accomplishment that much more. And just Jake, we were talking about like how difficult for Notre Dame to come back. I was kind of thinking of like near three-peats like in college football, and this doesn't perfectly fit. But I was thinking like the Miami Hurricanes, late '90s, early aughts, in the Trojans, in the Carrolls here, like they weren't like true three-peat chances because like the first title for I think the USC was like split and similar with Miami. But yeah, my main point is like neither program's ever gotten back to that point. I don't know if that's going to happen to Notre Dame, but yeah, I think if you get to there and just right on the cusp of history, the Chiefs this year, I don't know, like losing in the Super Bowl the way that they did, is going to prevent them from ever have another run. Patrick Mahomes is really great, but yeah, I think that the come down from being literally like just a legend in your sport for Notre Dame to be able to get there with like the Princeton teams of the '90s, Hughes teams, and Hopkins as well. Like cement yourself in history now. Like you got to kind of go back to the drawing board to if you want to try to accomplish that again. And as I said, it's just going to be difficult, but just for them, probably even more difficult than them not winning it in the past. Before they finally broke through, they got so close, but I think they kind of kept motivating them, and that's why they always came back. But this is good. I think it's going to be kind of difficult because like one more push or just maybe a couple more goals or just being able to prevent Penn State from like scoring all of those 8 unanswered goals. Like maybe you're playing one more week, but yeah, it's going to be tough if you're a Notre Dame fan to get over this one, I think.
I think it might take a year or two, but I think there's too much positive inertia with this Notre Dame program, with how much resources they're putting into this program, that they're going to be down for too long if they're down at all. So, I think you compare to the rest of the ACC. I think they're still in a much better spot than UNC is. UVA's got to retool a bit. Duke, we got to see what's going to go on. Danowski's not getting any younger, and I feel like Notre Dame's got a little bit more of a succession plan in place for Corrigan than Duke does for Danowski. So
Definitely.
And
And
I
also,
think there's
football and college
Yeah.
football, there's so many more teams, so much more competitive than
Notre
college and
Dame.
college. But
Notre Dame is
I do think it will be difficult for them to get that aura that they have had.
I think they have the aura. This program is at a different level. Like they are. It's
like they run Long Island recruiting now.
Yeah, I mean they're just winning the championship changed them in a way that I don't think it's ever changed any other program. Like it just like a glow up.
Not
really
since
did.
Princeton in the 90s.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe. Yeah, and I'm not saying Notre Dame is going to win 6 titles now in 8 years, whatever it might be. But the winning the championship for them was, I mean, it's you feel it when you walk in the stadium. It's something pretty crazy. So I think they'll be fine. But look, this is about Penn State, man. For
Penn State, this is
every bit
their status.
Every bit as crazy as that Syracuse Princeton game was, and was one of the best games I've ever seen. This is up there with comebacks. Matt Trainer, the name of the Carolina player, that Carolina Northwestern Final Four in 2022. I forget her name, but she scored like 5 goals in the fourth quarter when Carolina looked done against Northwestern.
Ortega's teammate.
Yeah, what is Scott? I'm so.
Oh yeah,
it wasn't Ortega, but it was.
Yeah, it was a teammate that like felt. Yeah,
she just took it on
Look
herself.
at the box score on Wikipedia. Not.
Or or go to the Carolina women's schedule. I forget, but I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name. But that's kind of Matt Trainer. It's unbelievable.
Let me just look that up before we move on. I'm getting up the Go Heels. Let's get the box score for the national semifinal against Northwestern. That
all right, I'll do Maryland Georgetown.
Sam Geyser back. Sam Geyser back. 4 goals.
Guys
on her own to win the game.
Yeah, guys, but yeah, that was.
But before we go on to our as Mark said, the John Tillman respecting session, a lot of Penn State fans here really like what they saw today. What else should they do, Jake, or Safe?
Smash the like button.
Yes.
Subscribe.
All right.
Definitely subscribe.
Yeah. So Maryland 9, Georgetown 6. Speaking of teams running out of gas, the Georgetown Hoyas. Kind of an interesting one. I mean, defensive. That's really what it comes down to is the defenses showed up, and Maryland's offense showed up a slight bit more than Georgetown's, and that's the difference.
I took the video when Maryland won, and then I kind of like drifted over to the Georgetown section, and I saw Kevin Warren standing by himself, kind of by the towards the Maryland. It was Maryland the goal, Maryland or where Maryland's goal was, or McNaney was at in that fourth quarter. And I mean, you never want to make too much of this stuff. Maybe he does that after every loss. And I know that Warren is intense in every game. Dude, I mean, it's something in person. Like I'm in the upper deck in the first quarter. Georgetown, they blew like 2 clear, or they didn't blow the clears, but like the first Maryland goal, something happened in the sub box, and Maryland got a layup, and then Georgetown had another one where I think they almost blew a clear, and Warren was yelling at the whoever was running the box for Georgetown. I could hear him from the upper deck. I mean, like I could, he yelled like that's 2 times.
Yeah, Nish and Quint were saying the same thing, that they could hear him from all the way up in the press box on the opposite side of the stadium.
I mean, that's crazy. But look, Warren, he wears his heart on his sleeve, and that's why we love him. Again, I don't want to make too much of it, but he looked pretty beat up. And it had the feeling of...
that's the thing. If I feel like watching that game, I felt like if this was one of the 6 other teams in the quarterfinals, we'd be talking right now about a huge upset. But I
disagree because, and I'm not saying that Maryland wouldn't have lost. This was the only game Maryland was going to play like this. Maryland is not going to play Syracuse 9-6. Maryland isn't going to play Penn State. Penn State maybe. I guess Penn State maybe. Maryland's not going to play Cornell.
Penn State they could play this.
This was Maryland playing a Big Ten game, basically. This was a big that's exactly, and that was the only game Maryland was going to play in this fashion. This game was always going to look like this. Maybe close, maybe like this. That's how this game was going to look.
But I just came away with that feeling that like the Hoyas had that shot.
Yes.
And they never took it.
Yes. That's why I was like, it felt like Georgetown, Warren and them thought, man, this was our best shot. We've been here a lot of times, and 21, the occasion got to them. It was their first time. They just got awed by the moment. 23, they got back against Virginia, and they were in that game. They had different opportunities for it, but that was a great Virginia team with Schellenberger and those guys. 24, last year they played Notre Dame. It was what it was. That was just what was going to happen.
It is what it is, yeah.
This was one where it was like, man, they had a shot here. And I think that, I don't know. I mean, there's different ways you can take this Maryland performance. Obviously, we'll talk about them. If you're going to beat Maryland, I think it's going to look like this. And that's why I think for Georgetown, I feel stuff is in a game where it's 9-6 and it's just such a defensive struggle. This was very reminiscent of Maryland's losses to to Michigan and Rutgers. In a game where it's more wide open, I think people kind of think like, oh, Maryland's going to struggle in a shootout. And they might, but the thing that happens in a shootout is the game is spread, the field is wide open, it's back and forth, and anybody can have success offensively in that kind of game because there's more opportunities and there's more space to make things happen. There's less of an onus on one or two great players on offense having to make something happen. I kind of relate it to like, in a game 7 in the NBA in basketball where you kind of always lean, well, I'm going to lean with it's going to be lower scoring. The shooting teams are going to shoot worse generally. You kind of always think, who's the team with the best player? Because that's a guy who in the fourth quarter, they can go to them and get a bucket. In this kind of game where it's so low scoring, every possession matters so much, Maryland really needs one guy to step up and make plays. And Braden Erksa kind of did that in the fourth quarter. But Maryland is not an offense with individual great talent. Maryland doesn't have All-Americans on offense. So the way that you really accentuate that is not in a shootout where it's wide open. It's in a game like this where the team defense is playing so well that you need one player to go out and make something happen for you. Aiden Carroll kind of did that a little bit for Georgetown in the second quarter. This is the game, I think, where you get Maryland in a weird way, is make their offense, make someone on Maryland's offense have to come to the party. And in a game where, again, and so for Georgetown, I think they thought like this was as close as they've gotten to the Final Four. And unfortunately, it still was kind of pretty far away. They took a lead and Maryland answered immediately, and Maryland's defense was, listen, this is not a game for everybody. I think if you polled the general lacrosse viewing public, who do they want to watch play? They want to watch Syracuse and Virginia. Like those are the neutral teams. People want to see a game like we saw against Syracuse and Princeton. And that game was incredible. That was a better game than this one. Maryland's style is not very often aesthetically pleasing. Mark says this was the game for me. And yeah, like that's different. If you are someone who appreciates this game, dude, this game was. There's teams that take pride. There's good defenses. I think everybody left in the field to a degree has a good defense. There's great defenses. And then there's teams that take pride in playing defense. Like they genuinely love playing defense. And these two teams freaking love playing defense. It is the intensity. You went over the middle of the field in this game at your own peril. Dudes went over the middle and tried to go. Braden Erksa scored the two big goals in that fourth quarter. And both times he took a lick getting those 2 big goals. I'm like, dude, it is like the intensity, the physicality. There was one hit Maryland blade on Georgetown in the second quarter that was, I think it was Kohler. I mean, just lit a dude up on the crease. Like, you go over the middle against that Maryland defense, like it's body bag stuff if you go over the middle. And so, like, it's not for everybody, I know, but just the physical effort required in this game was immense, unbelievable. Like, it was a true grind, trench warfare. And man, Maryland thrives in these spots. There's no other way to really put it. Like, Maryland didn't look, like Mark said it earlier, like, you know, teams feel there's a lot of teams running on empty. And dude, I mean, Maryland, they looked in the fourth quarter. I mean, Georgetown started to slow down, and Maryland was just they were still going. They looked ready, like they could go another 20 minutes. Again, it's if you don't love it, I get it, but as someone who, and again, I'm a Maryland fan, so I'm biased, but as someone who kind of does appreciate defensive games and slugfest, dude, this was that in every sense of the word. Every blade of grass on the field was competed for. They fought for every guys, and the intensity was just off the charts. And yeah, I think Gil's point is kind of fair too. You always just kind of felt like Maryland had Georgetown at kind of like they were just jabbing them and kind of keeping them at bay. If Georgetown had got a lead in the second half, I think it would have been a lot different. But man, I just came away like it felt so tense. I mean, again, part of that's for me. I mean, it did because obviously I'm a Maryland fan, so it does. But dude, I don't know. I understand it's not for everybody. It obviously was the 4th out of 4 entertainment wise because it didn't have the big finish, but I thought that game was still pretty darn. There was a lot to admire about that game. Both teams played so hard, and the physicality and the effort was pretty. That's Maryland, man. I mean, like not everybody can do what they do, and they do things. Obviously, they have their own style, but it works for them. There ain't many teams who are going to the Final Four in a quarterfinal if they scored 9 goals. Like they're not many teams you say, hey, if this team scores 9 goals, are they done? And you say, yeah. And if you say if Maryland scores 9 goals, are they done? It's no. Like they're in it. So that was kind of one big takeaway for me.
I think it's going to be interesting with the 2 best units in the country all year are Cornell's offense and Maryland's defense.
Be one hell of a championship.
And that's kind of what it looks like we're heading towards. I mean, if Syracuse's offense plays the way that they did yesterday, that might throw a curve in that. But at the same token, we've seen Maryland's defense time and time again have answers for Syracuse's offense. But it's going to be a fascinating weekend for Maryland because the defense is there. And it's just a matter of can they get at least one big offensive performance. But as you said, Jake, they can play at different tempos, so they could kind of play a little bit like they did against Air Force last week if they need to. But I think that's going to be the fascinating thing. I think Maryland needs one game next weekend where they got to score at least 12 or 13 because the defense is going to be there for them. But they've already passed the Syracuse test. So I think they got the confidence next week with the first game with Syracuse, plus a week prep for Tillman, compared to a week prep for Gate, which my thoughts on that by now. The interesting side is, can they keep that going the next game on Memorial Day when you're going up against Cornell's offense or against this Penn State offense that can get you a run when they need it? And you know how hard it is to beat the same team 3 times in a season. So that could be an interesting play as well. But I think the defense-wise, though, Maryland's set on the defensive end. And I don't think any offense is going to scare them. It's I think one of the 2 games They got to have that offense go on fire, which, again, as you said, Maryland could do that. They adjust to the tempo that they need to in the game, but I don't know if both games they could do what they did in that beginning of the season stretch where they only needed 11 against Syracuse. I think they would need a performance where, like the Princeton game, putting up 13 is the magic number, or the first Penn State game.
I think it's going to sound so. No one believes this. I think Maryland wants a shootout. I think Maryland's offense is not built to play half court. They need, like, Maryland's offense looked best this year when they had space. Maryland wants you to give them opportunities to run because they're actually good at it. But they played a whole Big Ten season where nobody plays transition in the Big Ten. That's the one thing I'll give against the Big Ten. Like, that's how it is. Nobody actually, like, tries to run. It's just 6 teams who want to play the same way, all against each other, and they just want to get in a phone booth and punch each other in the face. And Maryland Georgetown was the exact same way. It's
they would
2 teams.
Be happy with the score 1-0 going into the fourth, regardless if they had the 1 or the 0.
Yeah, like that's that, and Georgetown again is the same way. It's Georgetown's like the sister Big Ten team. Do they play? And Georgetown's Maryland. I mean, they play very similarly. I've seen Maryland play in these trends. I think that they would embrace that because it would give them opportunities to. It would open the game up, and when you open the game up, a lot of different guys can have success. Again, I could be off. If you ask me what scares me for Maryland, it's another game like this, because eventually it's just in a slow-scoring game. Like Maryland plays a low-scoring game against Cornell. CJ Kurse is going to touch the ball every time with a chance to tie or take the lead. But Maryland doesn't have CJ Kurse. If Maryland plays Cuse, go ahead, Steve.
No, maybe just such an admirer of Tillman of this run here, but I just think Maryland has a better chance to beat you at your style than you do at their style, and there's a better chance that the game's going to be played at Maryland's pace, just because they have more poise. They usually don't throw the ball like last year against Notre Dame. They just it was just one hell of a team. And Maryland just didn't have the guns. And if anything, you could say they overachieved and even just getting to the title game. But when they have a defense like they have and the offense, just I hear you with the DMs. You would like at least one more offensive weapon on there. But I still think if they could have a decent day at the face-off, in their defenses, I
want one guy.
I didn't want to sell you out that much, but yeah, that was a great joke. But I just feel like they have a better chance of you pulling you into their vortex, and then all of a sudden you're going to need to play 6 on half court offense, and you're going to have to be able to score on that because they'll be able to limit you in transition. And if you do give them transition, I think Maryland, as you said, if you do give them space and let them go run, I think Maryland could play with you that way. I think that, like I said, they have as good, maybe even slightly better chance to win in a game with more space and up and down. But you have less than 50% chance, I think, at playing at Maryland's. If Maryland's dictating the pace of they're playing the game that they want to play, and they're forcing you to play that way. If you like to go up and down, Cornell, like to get as many possessions, like to get 60 shots a game, and you don't get that in the game against Maryland, maybe only 30, 40. That I think they have better chance of you making you uncomfortable, you playing their game, and them being uncomfortable playing your game. I think Maryland can adapt if needed. They just prefer to play their game. And if you're not as defensively strong like Georgetown is, or you can kind of scare them, or the Big Ten opponents where some of them like the rock fights and have no problem, just it being a 5-4 game. But yeah, I think if you're a team that likes to get up and down, likes to get 16 goals, likes to get a lot of possessions, I think if you're playing in Maryland's pace, it's going to mess you up more than it will make Maryland to go be a runner.
Yeah. 2 interesting points that I think just in general for next week, not just even laying this with Maryland, it's going to be interesting to see what style on Monday is going to be the one that's going to be better on 2 days rest, because it could always vary. The defensive style or the offensive style? Because I think Maryland could play it both. Yeah, Syracuse could play it both. if we throw out yesterday as an anomaly, Syracuse's defense could play that rock fight type of game pretty well too. You saw that with the ACC title game against Duke. It's really, can Cornell play in that rock fight type of game is going to be kind of interesting. Because I feel like
listen, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't want Cornell in a rock fight. I don't want CJ Kurtz touching the ball every time with a chance to like, if it's a rock fight.
And to be fair, Cornell was in a rock fight against Dartmouth, won that 10-8.
No, Cornell's been like, if Maryland runs with Cornell, I think they have also, because to Save's point, more possessions equals like a less efficient offense gets more possessions, and it kind of evens out. Like they can get to enough. You're giving them more chances, even if they're not super efficient. There's just more chances. That's part of it. I mean, as for Monday, listen, Monday's just a freaking
Monday throw it at the one. And then I think the other thing too that I think I'm really interested in seeing. Yeah, I know this is getting into Jake and I centric because it's our two teams in the semifinal. Now that we can kind of look ahead at it, it's going to be kind of interesting. Again, if we throw out yesterday as an anomaly with the Syracuse defense, Syracuse's defense, I've been kind of beating on the drum all year, has been the underrated part with their aggressiveness and everything. That's going to be kind of fun to watch, I think.
Syracuse defense is off. Yeah, it's a very good unit. Yeah. Syracuse can play. Syracuse is, I mean, we mentioned it early in the year. Like, Syracuse was top 10 in like every efficiency statistic for.
Yeah, and so I think, and Maryland's in that quadrant too. So I think I know all the attention is going to be on Syracuse's offense versus Maryland's defense because that's strength on strength. But Maryland's offense versus Syracuse's defense could be the chess game that ends up being the most intriguing. Because I think, Jake, you're talking about Maryland's offense deserves more credit than it gets. And I'm here saying Syracuse's defense, deserves more credit than it gets. And I think that could be and we saw it in the first game. There were stretches where Syracuse's defense was able to throw Maryland into fits, and then vice versa in other stretches where Maryland's offense was able to find those holes to get those goals against Syracuse. So that, I think, as much attention as the Cuse offense versus Maryland D is going to be, I think the intriguing chess match is going to be on the other side of the ball.
Syracuse lost the first game to Maryland because Maryland got transition, and they feasted on it. And that's my point about where Syracuse is going to give you openings. That's the way Syracuse plays. Maryland hasn't played a team that's given them openings since they played Virginia 2 months ago. I mean, you saw it a little bit today. They got 2 key transition goals today. So if Syracuse could keep their poise and could avoid kind of the penalties and some of where things just get a little haywire with them, I think they'd be in a really good spot against Maryland. I think if Syracuse plays some more half court 6-on-6, I think that can really be up their alley. If the game gets crazy and it gets wide open, to Save's point, Maryland can kind of play any sort of style, and Maryland can run. We saw that in the Notre Dame game as well. So
yes, I know
Maryland can play in that sort of zone, and I think you invite Maryland to have opportunities. I don't know. The way I see it is, and I could be off on this, when it's a high-scoring game, 16-17, the difference is less to me which team can score and more which team is going to get the stop. Which team is going to break serve and get a stop. And I always will trust Maryland's defense to get a stop. I always trust McNaney to make a save.
Yeah. McNaney.
Yeah.
So yeah. And it's which McCool shows up because yesterday he got the stops he needed at the end, but he was not himself against that Princeton offense. So that's going to be
so many of these games. So many of the games in these tournaments, every team left in the tournament can play good offense. Every team left in the tournament can play good defense. Every team in the tournament is capable of winning. It's so much of it's going to be, as it always is, how do you clear? How do you ride?
Yeah.
How do you
face offs?
Face a key moment to save. Scully, I mean, there's a decent chance.
And I think, yesterday's game was such a friggin' trip that I don't know what to take out of that with Syracuse. You know what I mean? Like,
just as much as Maryland Georgetown was always going to be 9-6, Syracuse Princeton was always going to be 18-17. Like, it's just it's just the tracks in that kind of way. Mm-hmm. If you said whichever team has the best goalie probably is going to win the championship. I mean, so Mark asks, when Maryland beat Q's first on the basic take when the show was Syracuse get better because Maryland's a better team. Has anything changed? I think Syracuse is more. I don't know if they're the. I think Syracuse is more battle hardened than they were at that point in time. I think that Syracuse team at that point of the season had.
They're green. I guess is the word.
Yeah. Not even they were green. I just don't think they had really been through enough wars. They hadn't really faced Syracuse last year. Didn't face a bunch of true adversity. I thought like they had a good season and they beat the teams they should beat and they lost to the teams they should lose to. That was kind of Syracuse's season last year. And they got against Denver in the Final Four or the quarterfinal rather. And Denver really kind of pushed them. And Syracuse looked young for that moment. And I think a lot of that for Syracuse carried over to the beginning of this season. And I think Syracuse losing those two games early to Maryland and Harvard, and then I really think being pushed up against the wall when they lost to Carolina and Duke, I think it put this team where it was basically, look, you guys, you're going to either play with tenacity and play with a steel and resilience to you, or you're going home, or your season's over. Like Syracuse, would Syracuse have gotten in the tournament if they had lost to Notre Dame in the second game? Yeah, probably, but I don't know. They were probably going to go to Ohio State, so like it would.
They didn't want to leave anything to chance.
Yeah, it got to a point where I think that they had to grow up, and I think they did, and so I think this is just a Syracuse team that's in a much different place than they were early in the season. Are they better than Maryland? We're gonna look. We'll find out Saturday. That's the easiest way to kind of put that. I think that Syracuse is certainly, I think probably more than any other team feels like they're peaking at the right time or that they've peaked. Cornell's kind of still simmer a little bit. They've gotten by without their A game. Penn State, just two kind of crazy games, and they've found their way on the other side of it. Maryland's they've just Marylanded their way through the tournament so far. Syracuse is the team when you consider the way they played in the ACC semifinals. Can they carry that through for
They've been playing their best lacrosse all season in the money round.
Yeah, I thought Syracuse played their two best. There were different points. The third quarter Syracuse played against Princeton was the best lacrosse they played all year. So, look, two rematches is definitely interesting. I mean, Cornell, Penn State, we're going to find out. That first Cornell, Penn State game, both teams had something that they could say. The Cornell could say, oh, we biffed it. Like that we had that game for 59 minutes. We were the better team. Penn State could say, listen, we just saw Matt Traynor score 6 goals. Matt Traynor didn't play against Cornell. Kyle Lehman didn't play against Cornell. Penn State could say, so we're going to find out. It's all going to be on the table with Cornell and Penn State in this. All cards are on the table in this game. And you've got a young coaching staff for Cornell that is back in their second Final Four, and has certainly been pushed by Richmond, and they're kind of I think the story. Syracuse is probably the story of being back in the Final Four, but after that, it's going to be Cornell. Like it's been almost 40 years, more than 40 years,
this is
almost 50,
almost 50. And this is their best shot.
Yeah, almost 50.
This is a school that their two big passions are men's hockey and men's lacrosse. And those are two storied programs that have gone almost 50 years without a title. They are so hungry to either win a Frozen Four or win a Memorial Day weekend. And this is their shot. They've got the Tewaaraton winner in a runaway. I wouldn't even say that the pressure's on them necessarily, but this is their moment. And if they step up, and I think the gravity's there, CJ Kurz is getting a statue outside the Cough.
Oh, yeah. Dude, win the national championship, the first national championship in 40 years? Or 50 years, again, 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I mean,
CJ Kurz
as
could.
Arctic Pokemon said, yeah,
I mean,
Penn
we
State
said it like
getting their first one over the hump would be big too. But I mean, Penn State winning their first would be big. Yeah, Syracuse ending their drought would be big. Yeah, Maryland continuing to be the standard bearer and adding another trophy to the case would be big. But I think the gravity of the situation, and you saw it in the Jeremy Schaap piece and everything, is can Cornell get this done and finally get that elusive title for a school that just men's hockey, men's lacrosse, that's their lifeblood. And they've been tortured in both. If they can pull this off, it's going to be something legendary.
I agree. I think it's a very fascinating group of teams because you've got three teams who all have some sort of drought hexing over them. Cornell hasn't won a title in their 50 years. Penn State's never won it. Syracuse is back for the first time in 15 or haven't won a championship in 15, 16 years. And then Maryland's just kind of sitting there at, okay, it's another trip to the Final Four. They're the one that I don't know I don't know if that means anything. It might mean nothing at all. But it is kind of interesting to think they're the one that is another trip to the Final Four. But look, I think for all these teams, I would put this up there with one of the most wide open Final Fours we've ever seen. I think this year, I think 2021 to a degree, because it was 4 elite teams, but that was the 4 super teams. They were all not even 28. I would say 2019 maybe, the Penn State, Yale, but even going in, people thought Penn State was kind of a big favorite to a degree. But 2019 is the one that comes to mind: Penn State, Yale, Virginia, and Duke. After that, you kind of go back to maybe
2018 with Maryland, Duke, Yale, and Albany, maybe?
I don't know, 2013? I think Duke and Yale were pretty clearly the two best. The Duke and Yale were pretty clearly the two best teams that year, I think. And you saw that in the semifinals. I think 2013 maybe.
Yeah,
Syracuse,
Duke,
Denver,
and Cornell.
And Cornell, when Cornell kind of was on the draw. Any team that doesn't come away with it, I think is going to have a feeling of, man, we really had a shot there. There's no super team in this field. There's no, if you're going to win, you got to go through Notre Dame. There's no, if you're going to win, you got to go through Maryland. It's, yeah, man, we can win this thing. And so it's really right. Yeah, right. It's right there for the taking for all teams, and I think to a big degree. Cornell, yeah, probably has a different degree of pressure. But
yeah, because you also think about
anybody can win.
Yeah, I think the other thing though with Cornell is they got the urgency. Kirst Senior, Kelleher Senior, Dalton Senior,
Long
Senior. They got a very senior-laden class. Whereas, Maryland McAney's a senior, Spanos is a senior, but you still got to, it's Maryland. The guys on the team are going to have some shots. Syracuse, very junior heavy. They've got another shot next year at it. Penn State, young group. Cornell, this is it for the majority of their producers. So I think that's going to be
and a lot of those guys, and a lot of those guys came in after 2 years off of lacrosse and got to the championship and lost to Maryland, and they pushed them all the way. And you could kind of, when they lost that one, it was like, all right, man, what a hell of an effort, and what a run. Yeah, it's different now for these guys. It's the last chance saloon. I mean, this Cornell team is a program of legendary players. Rob Pennell never won a national championship. A lot of the guys back in the 70s did.
But Max Theobald never did. Jeff Theobald never came close.
Yeah. Unfortunately, lost 2020. They would have been, maybe would have won it that year. But Kirst is look. CJ Kirst could go down as the. Again, I don't. It's heady territory at Cornell. Like they really are a team of big names. But CJ Kirst could go down.
And you see how much that I think more than
time.
any other program, you see their fans with the T-shirts they're wearing and everything. As great of a tradition as your Syracuse's, Maryland's, Hopkins, Virginia's have, no one respects the tradition and the culture of that program more than that Cornell fan base does. So that tells you what the potential of this team can be.
It's a fraternity. It's a fraternity at Cornell. Every Kark's mentioned this before. It spans generations. Like when you're there. Tams Bowl, Tams against Cornell. I mean, they play every year, but this is a little, different in a semifinal. Maryland Cuse is just two big brands, box office. Syracuse back in the Final Four. Maryland's there. It's gonna be. Look, if it's anything close to this weekend, we're lucky. This was, I think, when you account for the games yesterday, the Syracuse-Princeton game, the crowd today at Annapolis was just unreal. The way the finishes and just you couldn't write a lot of the stuff we saw in the script. So I think this will go down as. I would say, to me, this is the best quarterfinal weekend I can remember. There's a couple that are close, 2019, 21. There's some other ones I'm thinking of. 06 or 07 had a good one too. Safe mention on the pod, like 02, all 4 games were kind of like
06 was pretty nuts. You had the Cuse, you had the Cuse Hopkins, you had UMass, the UMass Hofstra upset. But like this weekend was just, you came in, you had big names, you had the aura of Princeton, Syracuse in May, you had Maryland and Annapolis, so you knew you had the brand names with Penn State and Notre Dame, so the potential was there, and it just completely exceeded every expectation we had. And we had some pretty big expectations for this weekend.
This is the best weekend of the year. The Final Four will be great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it will be. But there's a reason we love this weekend so much. It feels like a kind of super kind of Final Four. Like it felt like a Final Four there in Annapolis today. It 100% felt that way. And Hofstra was especially with So amazing stuff. We love lacrosse. We felt whether you were
I love lacrosse. I smash liking lacrosse after that week and just want to smash my fist through a table in celebration of how great that was, which all our viewers do.
It's like 1,000 Cowboys running through your veins.
Smashing that like button and hitting subscribe. Yep, that's a good point. After the COVID, no more super teams, and you had a great balance of power conferences, ACC, Big Ten, Ivy League, all represented with 2 apiece. You got some good mid-majors, Richmond, Georgetown, and mid-major name only. It was fun. A good mix of teams, good mix of styles, and you put that together, it's some great alchemy.
And again, like you mentioned, all the team. I think every team, no team left this week. Look, there's no moral victories in lacrosse. You're not going to leave this being like, oh man, we had a great season. No, Richmond could have made the Final Four. Richmond could have beat Cornell. But nobody left, I think, feeling like Notre Dame, has dude, you're up 6 goals. But I don't think anyone left this weekend can be like, man, it sucks that we just didn't bring our best game. We didn't meet the moment. We laid an egg. We just kind of, the biggest weekend of the season, we just didn't show up. Everyone showed up. The best teams won in each game. The team that earned and deserved to win the game won the game. And the teams that lost are going to obviously carry this with them, and maybe they'll use it as fuel for next year. We see that a lot. We kind of have that narrative with Cornell potentially missing the tournament and trying to go on, next year win the national championship. But none of these teams, I think, can go away feeling like, wow, like what if we had just played? What if we had actually played the way we normally expect ourselves to play? I think everyone kind of Notre Dame, whatever you want to say. I think David Greenfield had earlier said in the chat, is like Notre Dame was probably a good team and not a great team this year. And Notre Dame will leave, obviously, having the fact that they blew that lead. But Notre Dame, I don't think can say Notre Dame played like Notre Dame did this year. Like that was Notre Dame this year, and unfortunately, the
and for a team that was unseeded, yeah, and they went from an unseeded team to being a quarter away from making it back to the Final Four when it looked like they were going to be nowhere short. So,
I mean, they were the favorite. They were the favorite to get to the Final Four out of that quadrant. But again, it's like Notre Dame. Look, Notre Dame played like Notre Dame did. Georgetown definitely played their best lacrosse. Think about Georgetown. Georgetown scored 3 goals against Denver 5 weeks ago. Like they looked nowhere near a Final Four. And yeah, it's brutal to lose this weekend, but it's also exhilarating to win. And a lot of teams got pretty special memories, and it's going to set up for a great championship weekend.
Yes, great championship weekend sets up in the future. Look, I mean, Cornell Richmond, run it back. Syracuse Princeton, I think we've got the rivalry back. Georgetown and Maryland,
that'd be cool.
Both in the Beltway. Why not get yourselves back on the schedule?
We'll see that. Penn State, an ACC team.
You found your ACC opponent.
Yeah, maybe.
All 4 of these matchups, you could run it back now, and because now you got the postseason rivalry aspect to them. Run them back. They're all doable, and I think this weekend has built up some good storylines for the future too.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I keep thinking, like...
Yeah, what's the Jake first?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead. Whoever wins this championship, I think it's going to be... Cornell, we talked about it. Penn State, the first one. Syracuse back on the return of the king, back on top. Even Maryland, I think Tillman getting to 3 titles would be... Like 3 titles gets you pretty. That's what ties Dino. It gets you one short of. He clears Lars, Petro, Corrigan. Like Maryland wins the title, and Tillman is like pretty much cemented as the best coach of his. If he's not already, I think everyone kind of sees it that way. 3 titles puts it like he's the best coach since I don't know Tierney. Like so all of them have. Maryland's might mean like I think the comparatively, but it'd still be big. 3 titles is for one coach is heady stuff. I think they would tie North Carolina with total number, or pass North Carolina with total number of championships. So they get to 5. So whoever wins, and especially in a year where it was so wide open, I think whoever wins will come away feeling like, man, like that was it was winning. That was huge. Like you really felt like you earned it. Whoever comes away with the trophy on Monday.
Safe, any parting shots?
No, I'm interested to see if Penn State can break through. Just feels like this is maybe all aligning, and just given the recent history against them and Cornell, Sam's got a pretty good record against them. Maybe can somehow stymie. Jake, I actually thought you guys were going to have a chance to be the first game this week because I was like, Cornell, just the storyline, and Notre Dame came through, 2-time defending champion in China, 3-peat. But I was like, Houston, Maryland, that's his box office gold right there. There's no way you guys aren't going to be the second game.
Even Houston, Maryland, anytime Houston, Maryland, like that's just the second game.
We'll be interested to see the back and forth among the fan bases. This will be the first tournament game since 2016, and that was a great one. And so remembering that, a lot of good banter back and forth. It was such a good game.
Maybe we should do a bet. Maybe we should do a bet. Like,
well, I don't know because we'll think about that because the issue is I think Maryland matches up really well against Cuse. You saw, we've seen it. Every time. In the Tillman era, but you never know. That's why they play. That's why they play Memorial Day weekend.
I mean, you're back in the Final Four, man. I think we need to do something for this. Yeah. The 2015 Hopkins Maryland was like too. It was too early for us to kind of do something out of that.
We didn't even pot at that time.
Yeah, I think we need to do something for
that
this.
was like our first year,
We didn't even
right?
pot. Yeah, we started potting 2016.
Yeah,
We haven't been back to the Final Four since I got that bump. Maybe I should come back down. Maybe I'll just come back to the Final
maybe you just figured it out, Safe.
Resign from voting. Just like do it for the program.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, the
so Mark makes a good point. There's no Princeton or Ohio
that's
State
right.
back.
I did not have to go down and Jersey Transit's they ended the strike since we started recording. But I don't have to go down and take a train ride to Princeton and get Hoagie Haven. I might do a day trip to Jersey sometime this summer, and I won't have to make a terrible TikTok video when I'm in Columbus.
We'll figure out something. We'll see something.
It's probably something involving Old Bay if Maryland to win, because I do like Old Bay. I do like Green Turtle's Old Bay wings. And then I guess for Jake, it'll be something, maybe buffalo sauce related for upstate New York. We'll see.
Interesting.
We'll see. But yeah, so AF was saying NLL Cup, I believe, is tonight as well. So you got some extra lacrosse with that. And as Mark said, we have invested 3.5 months for the next 8 days. Savor it. I mean, just so much good storylines. The men's game, we rolled it down. I can't wait for the. Yeah, and women's Final Four is going to be great too. Yeah, great. Yeah, and it all comes down to this. The women, it's the battle of the Titans. I know Florida's in it, and Florida could pull a big surprise, but that Northwestern Boston College game Friday night, UNC faces
all in one location too. It's all in Foxborough.
We brought back the smart thing of putting the men and the women in the same stadium, so it's just going to be an incredible atmosphere all weekend long at Gillette Stadium. 4 days of just titanic matchups and titanic storylines. So
if you're going, enjoy it.
Not wait to see my teeth this weekend.
Yeah, if you're going, enjoy it. We will be back. Ryan, maybe we'll do something Friday, Ryan, for the women's Final Four. We can see.
Yeah, let's see what time's the games. Yeah, maybe if I'm depending on when they are. Let's get the calendar. 3 and 5:30 are the start times, though. That's a little early.
So
I'll see. Maybe. Yeah, no, it's really 3 hours. It's 3 hours in a 2.5 in a 2 hour window. Women's lacrosse games.
That second game is starting at 6 at the earliest 6 o'clock.
6, yeah. So, maybe second half BC we'll Northwestern, yeah, because that is going to be an epic game.
We will be back. We will be back Saturday after the men's Final Four games to break it all down. So make sure you're subscribed. Tune in, and then Monday, Memorial Day is tentative, but I will. Here's my promise to you: if Syracuse or Maryland wins the title, we will be live. If they don't, we might not be. But if Maryland or Syracuse wins, I don't think we're avoiding not doing a show. So we'll see that Monday. Safe will call in from the airport.
I'm gonna have to fly to Stockholm on Monday, but I'm going to Newark, so good possibility for delays. So
yeah, you might be waiting a while.
Well, I did see. I was like, it looked like maybe the international flights weren't as bad as the domestic ones. So I'm fingers crossed. But it should. Well, they usually start 12:01, right? The title game. So
1 p.m. 1 p.m.
this year. Yeah.
So I think I fly at 5:30. So maybe like a quick thing. But I'm going to Sweden. So.
No, this show never beats the Homer allegations.
Again,
You could even blatantly see who we second. You could even see who you could even blatantly see who our secondary teams are on this show. We don't hide anything on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know how Mike Tirico was making a speech on a Syracuse podcast, by the way, of how to be objective? No, we're fans. We're objective too, but we wear our hearts on our sleeves.
We are objective. Say what's it?
This is a great.
We are
one of the great
objective,
things.
but we're not impartial. Like we are partial to team. We're objective. Like we're not gonna, but
That's a
Like, I spent the whole year waxing poetic about Cornell, and I'm a Syracuse guy. We're objective.
that's a leg that we stand on legally. We're like, we're not impartial. We never said that. We just said objective. Which means we can put our partiality to the side.
I think literally on the old website used to say like from a fan perspective or something. That was what he used to say. So no, we'll never hide it. I think that's what people come for. So,
but it's rigorous peer review and any of our takes.
you got
Peer review tape.
Well, you get
Been
checked
verified from multiple sources.
You get checked. If you come up with something a little too high, you get checked.
Yeah, I get checked. Absolutely.
Jake has excused me.
Power hour and a half.
Many times.
Out of here.
All right. Thanks, everyone. If you haven't already, smash the like button, hit subscribe, leave a comment if you're watching the replay, and we appreciate everything. Again, huge numbers today, so we really appreciate everyone tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and we'll be at it. As always, stay hydrated, folks.
Yeah.
Becky Lynch for president.
How does this affect the Leafs?
All right. Good evening. Thank you, folks.
Ford, Honda, Chevy, Beamers, and minivans, over 600 cars, trucks, SUVs. Are you listening, man? Let Eastern Motors put you in a car today. Let Eastern Motors finance it all the way.